Hello and welcome to the Daily Journal's political headquarters. I'm your host, Rod Guajardo, editor of the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. Thank you for joining us tonight as we break down the results of Mississippi's presidential primary and 1st District Congressional seat races. I'm joined by James Hull and Ed Holliday here in our studio, our Northeast Mississippi political analysts, as well as with Bobby Harrison and Jackson. We're going to be calling the results live here tonight as they come in from across the state, specifically Northeast Mississippi, and just talking a little politics with the folks here joining us tonight. We also have Caleb Bedillion, local government reporter for the Daily Journal. He's going to be at the Trent Kelly camp here in Tupelo, and we'll be reporting live from him later this evening. So I guess let's just start off and kick it off. First of all, Hillary Clinton, the AP, and several other national outlets are already calling the race for her here in Mississippi. No big surprise there, right, James?
None to me. Mississippi has always been a Hillary Clinton's state. I don't think Bernie had any traction at all in Mississippi. There was a lot of enthusiasm, but it was really shallow. A lot of people I know were supporting Bernie, but it was a pretty shallow support there. But you know, Mississippi is Clinton country, so I'm not surprised at all.
And we'd been hearing that all week, and you know, her husband Bill was in Jackson last week. Yep. She herself did not make an appearance here, but neither did Bernie Sanders, so that wasn't a big surprise there. Again, not a huge surprise here. We're still only 2 precincts of 1,811 reporting, so still a ways to go until we see some hard, fast numbers. But you know, again, the first real call of the night, no big surprise so far.
Yeah, and I think Hillary will probably win by a 45 or 50% margin when it's all over with. I mean, it could be 75-25 or something like that. That's what I'm thinking. What do you think, Doc?
I think you're right on the Clinton votes. This is Mississippi, and Bernie never got traction here.
Yeah, and like I said, with no visits and little visibility as far as political spending, I don't know that he really stood a chance here. And I think that also goes to speak to Hillary's track record so far in the Deep South. I mean, she has swept the South so far, and this Mississippi is just a continuation of that.
Yeah, but you know, one of the things I've been thinking about for at least a couple of weeks now, Hillary is winning red states. So you know, it really doesn't. It bodes well for her winning the nomination, but it doesn't do anything for her aspirations to be president. She's winning these red states, and unless she makes some inroads into the white Protestant vote, it's going to be difficult. And the reason I brought that up is because that was what one of the news networks was discussing when I walked out of the door, that Hillary is doing well with the white vote in Mississippi.
Right.
She's getting about 46-47% of the white vote, the white Democratic vote in Mississippi. So that's not too bad.
Which in other states I think has swept to the other side for Bernie, and you're not seeing that here.
That's exactly right.
Well, for those who aren't familiar with James and Doc, Ed Holliday, these are our monthly Point-Counterpoint columnists. Every month you can find them in the Daily Journal writing about politics, specifically Mississippi politics, and swaying back and forth on the political spectrum. James is an award-winning journalist and political consultant. Doc is a Tupelo dentist who has written 2 successful books. Together they debate various issues from different ends of the political spectrum. Again, thank you guys for joining us, and I look forward to talking some politics with you guys tonight.
Good to be here. We're glad you have us, Rod.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Bobby, any surprising results here so far in Jackson, or any thoughts as we kind of kick off?
No, I echo what James and Doc said. I mean, Mississippi just doesn't have the white progressive liberal base, however how you want to identify that. The young progressives, they don't have a large enough number to help Sanders like he's been helped in some other states like in Iowa and New Hampshire. So and I think the white Democrats in Mississippi may be more pragmatic too, in that they're so used to losing, they just want to try to win.
Bobby also does a webcast for us every Monday afternoon, the Daily Journal's Capitol View webcast. Make sure to tune into that every Monday at 2 o'clock. Bobby Harrison, our Capitol correspondent down in Jackson for the Daily Journal. Bobby on Capitol View discusses all things legislature issues, bills going on in the Senate, House, anything going on right now. Bobby's on top of it, and we'll be checking in with him throughout the night as we talk not only the presidential primary, but also Mississippi's first congressional district seat, which is up for grabs, at least on the Republican side tonight, and then we'll continue into November. And Doc, you're no stranger to that race, are you?
No stranger. Less than a year ago, I've right in the thick of the fight of it. So yeah, it seems like years ago now, but yeah, I know something about that territory.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll check in with you later and get some thoughts from that race that you were in. You know, a 13 candidate field about this time last year that certainly took a lot of guts and will to get that through. I know that was no easy feat for everyone involved.
Looked a lot like the National Republican field there, didn't it? It did. Can I just say one thing that, Bobby, I think one of the things that I'm beginning to kind of get a feel for is that you were saying that Mississippi is not a white liberal progressive state. You know, Mississippi is not a black liberal progressive state. That's why Hillary Clinton is doing, you know, so very well. Hillary has been known as a moderate. You know, she and Bill kind of you know, started the moderate wing of the Democratic Party, and that's how Bill got elected in the first place. And black Mississippians are rather conservative. I mean, if you take polling and you see what policies we support, obviously we, you know, kind of break down along some racial lines in terms of trust and mistrust, but just in terms of policies, black Mississippians aren't that liberal and progressive. We still have some stances about abortion. We've still got some stances about same-sex marriage. Right. So, you know, it just really depends on how you couch the question, as they say.
Absolutely. And you know, as we get into the early results here, which again are still sort of slowly trickling in, not unexpected there. Let's talk a little bit about how the endorsements lined up and which candidates went into Tuesday with a little extra on their shoulders. Doc, you and I were talking a second ago. You know, late last night, Governor Phil Bryant endorsed Ted Cruz seemingly out of nowhere. I mean, there wasn't a thought that this was coming, or again, didn't make a really big splash. He didn't show up to an event with Senator Cruz. He just sort of sent out this press release, and that was it. Was that surprising and that late in the game almost?
Very surprising. I think it was something Cruz camp really wanted, and I don't know how hard they were working for it, and it seemed to come right out of nowhere. Right. You know, less than 24 hours before the polls opened, the governor comes out for Governor Phil Bryant came out for Ted Cruz in a very strong way. Even went on national television on the Sean Hannity show with Ted Cruz to announce his endorsement of Ted Cruz. So they were hoping that'd give a good surge, but that's, you know, we'll find out here when the votes start coming in.
Yeah, still no strong results so far with 3 precincts reporting Donald Trump is leading with 52% of the vote, but still we're talking about hundreds of votes at this point and no real significance there up to this point.
Rod, one thing I would say to me, and I think a lot of people around the country are looking not only at Mississippi but Michigan, other places, what's Marco Rubio going to do?
Right.
Well, are his numbers going to hold up, or are people going on to Cruz or Kasich or Trump? And that's be very interesting to watch tonight what Marco Rubio does in Mississippi, as well as seeing if Cruz can come in and make a run against Trump, who was dominating Alabama.
Right.
He won by 40% to 20% over Cruz, and that was the same polling that was here in Mississippi just 7 days ago. So what happens in 7 days how close can Cruz come and knock some of that percentage down? That's what we're looking for tonight, I believe.
Yeah, I can tell you what he's going to do, Doc. I can tell you exactly what he's going to do. He's going to stay in the race until the bitter end. He's going to let Ted Cruz gum up the works. It's going to look all the way through like this bloodbath between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. But Rubio is going to stay in because the establishment, that he's really the darling. He's really the baby boy that they want. And he believes, and they've convinced him, that if he stays in, and make it to the convention, they'll find a way to get him that nomination.
And James, one thing a lot of people may not realize, and some watching politics do, but Ted Cruz, he opened up 10 field offices in Florida just last week. So why do you think he opened up 10 field offices in Florida, James?
Well, he did it, Doc, so that Rubio wouldn't say that I won Florida, and he's going to try to push him out on his own turf, Doc. I mean, obviously you're right, but what I'm saying is, guys, you got to understand, Doc and I cross-talk each other all the time, but what I'm saying is Rubio, I believe, I'm not a prognosticator, is going to stay in until the bitter end, even if he loses Florida.
Well, I beg to differ. If he loses Florida, I don't see how Rubio,
right.
Everybody would say, you need to get on out. And, of course, that's why Cruz opened up 10 field offices in Florida. If Rubio doesn't go out nicely, he wants to make sure he pulls enough votes to that Rubio can't win Florida. That's a week from today.
Right,
so,
right, absolutely.
In politics, this 1 week is going to be like a lifetime for a lot of people.
Sure. And then before we get to that week, we still have other states tonight. Just a reminder, Mississippi's not the only state voting. We have Michigan. Results are going to be coming in later from that. Idaho and Hawaii also have Republican caucuses this evening. So a lot of delegates out there still left to be got, and Mississippi's not the only state, but obviously the one we're focused on tonight.
Hey, Rod, are we going to start for Hawaii?
To watch closely, but we'll also watch the other states.
That was funny.
And so right now we're joined by Caleb Bedillion. He is at Mugshots here in Tupelo, Mississippi, and that is the place where Congressman Trent Kelly, is sort of hosting a little get-together there. Caleb, are you there? I think we're having some audio-video issues there, so we'll come back to Caleb here shortly. Let's talk for a second about what's at stake in Mississippi tonight. 40 Republican delegates, 36 Democratic delegates. That's a significant chunk of what's out there. Obviously, we were talking about this earlier. Mississippi didn't necessarily stay in the spotlight too long. Candidates were here yesterday. Trump was in Madison. Cruz was in Florence. And now they're gone. They're in Florida already. But those are no delegates, to laugh at. I mean, that could easily help one candidate in particular. Any thoughts on the sort of path that the Republican candidates have taken here in Mississippi to acquire those 40 delegates?
You're right, because Mississippi is a week after Super Tuesday, and there's a lot of talk about and we did a point-counterpoint on that last month, should Mississippi line up with Super Tuesday, and there's some give and take on that. One thing, Mississippi is getting just a lot of press tonight in the last couple of days. Now, we didn't get all the ads that some states get.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I believe we got to look at is as far as will Mississippi play a role in giving Cruz momentum, or Rubio dropping out of race, or what Mississippi will play some kind of role this week in pushing somebody's campaign agenda. But what you got to remember, on March 15th, a week from today, is the winner take all delegate states.
Right.
So everybody needs to remember, in Mississippi we're still proportional at this point. So it's not winner take all. So if Donald Trump wins everything, Rubio can still get delegates, or Cruz, or Kasich. So those are things we're really watching for tonight. And I know Trump he was way up in the polls before the election, and so he looks like he'll probably take Mississippi tonight.
Yeah, this just in, Associated Press has called the race for Trump in Mississippi. So again, not a real huge surprise there either, but as results keep coming in, I think the numbers will be more telling as we start seeing whether the 2 and 3 and the 4 places, how those stack up with the Republican fields.
Rod, what you're saying right there is that's what we'll be staying up watching, because the delegate count will be the split between the candidates, and that's really how close can Cruz get to Trump, and does Rubio, if he has such a minimal effect, does that affect him nationally?
Sure.
And people say this candidate is fading. And so that's what we're looking for in Mississippi tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in Mississippi that you have to get 15% of the statewide
James, if
vote.
you want to talk, I mean, again, 36 Democratic delegates. That was Bob.
I think Bob was talking.
Sorry,
Was
Bobby.
talking. Go ahead, Bob.
I was just saying, I think you have to get 15% of the statewide vote to even get any delegate, to get a proportional share of delegates. So, I mean, you can see a situation in Mississippi where Rubio doesn't get any delegates.
Yeah, right now he's only at about 7%, so he might not get any delegates at all.
And it'd be interesting to see if Sanders gets shut out in Mississippi, which I think is a possibility.
You know, I'm going to be looking at, you know, I'm going to give it one more try because Doc and I did do this on Point-Counterpoint, and my thinking right now is if Super Tuesday can send these two races to Mississippi, then we will get more campaign money. We'll get more visitors coming in.
Right.
And I was really thinking that for example, that on the Democratic side, Sanders would have done better in Louisiana.
Sure.
And if Sanders had done better in Louisiana, I think Clinton would have spent just a little bit more money. And she may have come herself.
Right.
You know, her husband, she may have decided to come down herself. So I'm thinking about Super Tuesday, Doc, 4 years from now, being a feeder day. And just depending on who the candidates are and what the delegate county is coming out of Super Tuesday, I still think Mississippi has a chance of being positioned pretty well to get a lot of money and get a lot of attention. Rod is right. We didn't it was fleeting. It was a shooting star.
And Bobby, you can maybe talk a little bit about how the delegate counts stack up and just how the process works in Mississippi. You know, we're all familiar with going to the polls and who you vote in, but what happens after that and how do delegates line up?
Well, I think the way it works on both sides is you get a certain number of delegates for winning one of the 4 congressional districts, and then you get proportional share for winning for statewide. The winner obviously get the biggest share, but but it would proportionally broken down. But as I said, I think this is right. Y'all may know, y'all have been involved in party politics, but I think you have to get 15% statewide to get any delegates.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a certain percentage. I believe you're right on that, Bobby. And the congressional, you got to win the congressional district. I think it's 3 delegates in the Republican Party. I may be wrong on the exact. And then you do proportional statewide. So there's a different way to look and the way they'll get the total number of delegates after tonight. But it's you know, it will be proportional.
Sanders may well, and I don't know, but Sanders may well win the 1st congressional district because if there is still such a thing as a Mississippi Democrat, so you know it's going to be in the 1st congressional district, and he may well get a couple of delegates out of the 1st congressional district. 8 years ago, I was a Hillary Clinton delegate going to the state convention,
right.
And Hillary did very, very well. And we didn't even know who Barack Obama was at the time, and I think most of us were Hillary Clinton delegates.
Right.
But yeah, I think Bernie will probably come out with some delegates.
Sure. And just
James,
I think this is a good time to kind of reflect.
Bob is about to correct me.
I don't want to go against my old tennis opponent.
Okay, Bobby.
but I'll be surprised if he wins the 1st district. I really will be. So I think that may be Clinton's strongest district.
Well, I guess the only thing I'm saying is if he wins a congressional district, it would probably be the 1st because he definitely. You think maybe he'll win the 2nd? I mean,
I don't. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly right. So
if
he wins
one,
shut
out on congressional districts.
Right. So if he wins one, it'll be the 1st. If he gets delegates, it'll probably be what percentage he gets from the statewide count.
Didn't Clinton come to Northeast Mississippi 8 years ago, James?
Yes, he did. He was at the furniture market. Yeah, thank you, Doc. I had a senior moment there. Yeah. He was at a furniture market with blue jeans and a flannel shirt on.
And I remember when Clinton came because it snowed that night. We hadn't had snow in a long time. It was in March, and it snowed, and it did, but it didn't bring magic to Hillary. She still got beat by Barack Obama.
That's right.
Well, as those results keep coming in, we'll check back. But let's switch gears a little bit and talk. Let's talk 1st congressional. You know, those results are probably going to be slower than the presidential as they rack up. But so far, we have 3 of 423 precincts reporting Trent Kelly is leading 95% with 215 votes to Paul Clever's 11 votes at 5%. Again, not a huge shocker there, I think, so far, but very early still. There are certain boxes and counties out there that could easily sway for Clever, and Trent will obviously rack up a couple of those as well. But Doc, just any thoughts here as we look at some initial numbers?
Well, and people may not realize Paul Clever he's from Holly Springs, but a lot of DeSoto County connections, and that's what I think he was playing on, and we'll see, because the Congressional district, and since I sort of know that ground after a year, goes from the Mississippi River all the way to the the Tin-Tom Waterway all the way up to Pickwick. I mean, it covered a lot of ground and a lot of wonderful people in this district, and I think Paul, he's, what you got to do, you got to have a base of excited people get out and knock on doors in all the counties to have a shot at winning and trying to beat an incumbent. You got to have some money somewhere that people willing to support and get behind you. And the incumbent, in this case, Trent Kelly, he's been there less than a year, and so it's a lot of mixture in there that makes it tough on someone.
I think we're back in. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Everyone watching at home, we had a little network issue there, but we are back and talking first district congressional race. Doc, a candidate for the race last time around during the special election to replace Alan Nunley. We were talking about Paul Clever, who is taking on Representative Trent Kelly and his seemingly lack of campaigning in certain areas outside of DeSoto County, and just your thoughts on that, if he should have spread out his attack a little bit more.
Well, I think, and of course, you can only be in so many places at one time. I learned that also a year ago, and there's a lot of events, and I think Paul just had a formidable task before him.
Right.
And he had time to get out and meet people, do things, and he probably did a lot more than people saw as far as events. So, I'll give anybody a pat on the back for just being a part of the American process and getting out there and getting in the fight and the battle to make America better. And that's what it takes, candidates to run and sharpen other candidates.
Can I speak to that strictly as a political scientist and not as a Democrat at all? This is what I see as happening. It's the same thing that happened with Alan Nunley. I'm speaking strictly as a political scientist, not as a Democrat at all. The Tea Party and further right wing of the Republican Party has decided that they're going to primary every one of their candidates. That's all it is to it. I mean, when you run against Alan Nunley and say Alan Nunley is not conservative enough, and when you run against Trent Kelly and say Trent Kelly is not conservative enough, that is the right wing of the, and I don't mean wing nuts. I just mean the more conservative wing, because Doc is, Bobby, I hear you laughing, but that is the right wing of the party saying we're going to primary every Republican candidate that we feel like that is the only way we can hold their feet to the fire. What do you think?
Well, what you just said, James, there is a feeling out there that Mississippi can do better. Mississippi is one of the most conservative states in the nation, and then there's a lot of folks that in the conservative fields are looking at the Republican Party, and we see our politicians, our elected leaders who are Republicans go up there and they have their conservative values that the Heritage Action puts out, and other people show them a very lackluster conservative values as far as their votes. And of course, the Heritage Action and others who will score values on different legislation, it makes Mississippi.
Doc, I'm just curious to know how far right, and I'm strictly saying this as a student of political science, this is my training, how far right will candidates in the Republican Party have to go to make you guys feel good? Because this is my point. When you do that, look at who you end. I feel like Van Jones. I'm seeing it. When you do that, when you do that, look at who you end up with. You end up with the Donald Trump, because you just keep pushing your candidates further and further to the right until they actually almost become demagogues. And Doc, I know you well enough to know that's not what you want, but that's what you're going to get.
Well, as your political scientist background, that this is a part of, again, the American experiment. And what I guess frustrates, and that's, we talk about the Republican voters are angry this year. Donald Trump said himself that he's angry too, and he's appealing to that. And we see our nation going further and further to the left. And no matter what we throw up there and send to Washington, it seems like we cannot even slow it down. The nation skids further and further to the left, and that's causing so much frustration. As someone, we want to find a candidate to say, hey, I'll go up there and with a backbone, and we're going to keep the country skidding toward the left.
Just let me punctuate this by saying this, Rod. This is why the Daily Journal simply has to put me and Doc on the stage, because anybody who just heard that statement is laughing right now. Anybody who says that this country is going further to the left is just making a joke, Doc. You got to be trying to make it funny. The only thing that's leftist in the United States government, federal government right now, is Barack Obama, and that's because he writes with his left hand. That is the only thing. Doc, is funny. It's funny.
Well, you look at taxes. Have taxes gone down in the last 8 years? Has corporate tax businesses, are more business being formed or more business going bankrupt? The answer is more business are going bankrupt. And because of the policies of the regulations, look, it's carbon dioxide. It used to, you could breathe freely, not worry about it. Now you're polluting the atmosphere when you breathe carbon dioxide by what the EPA has told us. Carbon dioxide is now a pollutant. So these are things what I'm calling skidding to the left.
All right, I'm going to cut you all off there.
We refuse to hijack your show. We will not do it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I think we went a little too far into the rabbit hole, but we're back, and we're going to go to Caleb Bedillion here, who is at Mugshots in Tupelo, reporting live from the Trent Kelly camp. Caleb, can you hear me?
Rod, glad to be here. Am I making connection?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
All right, good.
Start off and just sort of talk about the atmosphere down there. What's it like over at Mugshots in Tupelo at the Trent Kelly camp?
All right, well, as you said, I am here at Mugshots in Tupelo. Probably about 25 friends and family members of Trent Kelly's are here. The congressman is not himself here yet. Am I there?
Yes.
Okay, looked like you lost me there for a minute, but I'm back. Okay, so Congressman Kelly is not here yet, but looks like by the time he does get here, then he should have some good news. The early results that we're getting so far have him coming in very well with the voting results for him.
Yeah, so far we have 1% of our precincts reporting Trent Kelly is still ahead, 93% with 464 votes. Paul Clever at 34 votes with 7%. Just talk a little bit about the campaign trail so far, Caleb. I know you have talked to both of the candidates here and have done stories leading up to this point. You know, what did you hear were the issues going in, and sort of what did both candidates tell you up until this point?
Sure, sure. Well, it's been a pretty low-key campaign thus far. Neither candidate, I would say, had a very strong ground game or presence here in the district. Kelly's been in D.C. actually the last couple of weeks, but in terms of issues, it really seemed to be about Trent Kelly's record. That seemed to be the primary issue that was motivating Paul Clever, was disappointment over several votes that Representative Kelly had made, including the omnibus spending package last December. Clever would have rather seen a vote against that package, even if it meant shutting down the government. Kelly defends his vote, says that conservatives were able to achieve some wins in the omnibus spending package. That was one of the major issues. Kelly wants someone who's gonna say no a lot more, in his words, a principled no vote. But Kelly thinks he has a strong conservative record, and that voters will send him back for a full term.
Caleb, let's talk a little bit about Jacob Owens, the Democratic candidate who we have really yet to hear a whole lot about, but is on the ballot uncontested today and will take on the winner of the Kelly Clever race today in November. What can you tell us about Mr. Owens and sort of what he's doing now that he right now today that specifically that he doesn't have an opponent on the ballot?
That's right, Rod. Jacob is going to sail through the primary. Like Paul Clever, he is a political newcomer. He's rather young, in fact. He's 24 years old. He's originally from Boonville, Mississippi. Currently lives in Oxford, though, and he works at an architecture firm in Tupelo. So he has ties throughout the district. Obviously, he hasn't made his presence known much since he didn't have a primary opponent to worry about. But he tells me that once we're past the primaries, he wants to really ramp up his social media presence and start getting his name out there. We'll see what that looks like in terms of once we're past this primary.
Perfect. Well, Caleb, thank you for those updates, and we'll check back in with you as we get some more results in that race. Bobby, let's go over to you for a second. Let's continue on our congressional discussions here. Let's talk for a minute about the sort of historic legacy that that Tupelo and Lee County has had with that seat, and maybe is there an opportunity for that to switch over, not necessarily tonight, but eventually down the road if folks from DeSoto County decide that they want a particular candidate and really make a push. Is there an opportunity for that to sort of sway over onto the other side, or what do Tupelo Lee County folks need to do to keep control of that seat? Just talk to us about that for a little bit.
Well, Rod, I mean, you covered the election, the special election that Ed was one of the 13 in last year, and I mean, I just think that the way it's shaped up so far has been it's been Northeast Mississippi and the rest of the district against DeSoto County, and DeSoto County has the most population, but when the rest of the district is sort of voting against DeSoto County and voting for a favorite son from Northeast Mississippi, I think that gives our region of the state an advantage. And plus, historically, DeSoto County doesn't vote at the percentage that it's as high percentage as some other areas of the district does. So that also hurts DeSoto County. Sure. Now, this district, for years and years and years was represented by Jamie Whitten, who was from over in the sort of the close to the Delta there in Water Valley, and then when he retired, that's when it became a Tupelo district and has been a Northeast Mississippi district since then. Which I think that was 94 when Roger Wicker first won the district. And so I just think I personally think Trent Kelly's going to be there for a long time. I think that he ran a strong campaign in the special election to come out of 13 candidates to win the race, and I think he's put himself in position to be to have that seat for a long time if that's what he chooses to do.
Bobby, one of the things as you were talking, and I know DeSoto County is a unique and a wonderful place, but they have a lot of people who've moved in out of Shelby County and Tennessee into DeSoto County. They don't have some of the ties in a lot of the not a lot of the population, but some of the population is new to politics, and so therefore, like you said, you don't see as large a percentage in DeSoto County coming out to vote. I do think Trent Kelly, Congressman Kelly, has made some good ties to the people in DeSoto County, and he realizes how important that is, and I believe he's representing them well, working to represent them well. So your insights, I'd agree with you.
And Trent gets a lot of Democratic votes. He's got good, strong ties in the Democratic community also, right. And as long as he maintains those, as Bobby said, he could be congressman for life if he wants to be. I mean, he could be there for 20 terms, right? If he stayed healthy and just decided that was something that he wanted to do. Trent is he's a good guy. I think most people like his positions and his politics. But as I said, there's going to be that wing of the party that's going to run against him in 2 more years, and in 2 more years, and in 2 more years, because that wing of the party wants to make sure that the Republican office holder, you guys want to keep their feet to the fire, Doc.
Well, you said it right there, James. There's some people get frustrated, and that term "feet to the fires." You don't want anybody to ever take their office for granted, and we shouldn't as citizens. We shouldn't let anybody think they own the office, because the office belongs to us, the citizens, and it takes a good person who knows how to put people together and put a campaign together like Congressman Kelly did last year, and I think we're seeing tonight that he's overwhelmingly being returned by the Republicans who are voting for him tonight, and then I think we'll see the same thing in November.
Well, we are working to confirm this, but right now the Associated Press is calling the race for Trent Kelly. We will try to get that confirmed with a couple other sources, but right now with 5% of the precincts reporting, Trent Kelly has apparently won the race for First District Congressional seat. So again, no big surprise there. We talked about his opponent, Paul Clever, and the limited campaigning he did in such a huge, large district, and how Congressman Kelly came into this with a good name, with a good reputation, winning that special election, the 13 crowded seat that you were a part of, Doc, and again, just coming out of this with an apparent victory, but we will work to confirm that here shortly. I just want to remind you guys of some Daily Journal programming here that we have for you throughout the week. Stay connected on the news and happenings in Northeast Mississippi through the Daily Journal's podcast, The Memo. Listen to the Daily Journal's expertise while you work, commute, or exercise. Hosts Brad Locke and W. Derek Russell interview reporters and community members to keep you informed on news, food, movie reviews, wacky crime reports, and more. Listen for free in iTunes, podcast apps, or at memo.djournal.com. That show airs every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoon, and we will be having some election commentary on tomorrow's show, so make sure you check that out. Again, I'm joined here in the studio tonight by James Hull and Ed Holliday. They are our Daily Journal's monthly Point-Counterpoint columnist. James is an award-winning journalist and political consultant. Doc is a Tupelo dentist here who has written 2 successful books. Together they debate various issues from different ends of the political spectrum, so make sure you check out their column once a month in the Daily Journal. We're also joined by Capitol Correspondent Bureau Chief Bobby Harrison in Jackson. Bobby hosts the Daily Journal's Capitol View, which is a webcast that airs every Monday on djournal.com. In that webcast, Bobby tackles anything from commentary and analysis on the issues being debated by Mississippi lawmakers. So make sure you catch that every Monday afternoon at 2 p.m. or replayed later in the day. New episodes will be released as long as the legislature is in session, and I know they've been keeping Bobby awful busy lately, huh?
That's right, Rod.
Bobby, let's go back to the presidential for a minute and talk about Jackson specifically. And we talked earlier about some of the endorsements that were handed out late last night by the governor and some other folks, but we also had some lawmakers who endorsed Trump last week. Talk about maybe what the atmosphere has been like in the capital city this week, last week, as we sort of led up to today.
Well, I mean, we were talking with some Daily Journal folks. We're talking today, and there hadn't been the excitement there was in 2014 when you had the McDaniel Cochran Senate race, and which was the largest Republican primary turnout. But in the last few days, there's been quite a bit of excitement, and I know I had some neighbors who went to see Donald Trump last night at the Madison Gym, and Cruz has his support. Chris McDaniel, who almost beat incumbent Senator Thad Cochran in 2014, and who has to be considered a political icon in the state. But he was almost defeated by McDaniel. He endorsed Cruz and is his, I guess, state director. And there's some legislators who endorsed Cruz, and there was a good number of legislators who endorsed Trump. All Republican, of course. Probably the most prominent of those was Senate Finance Chairman Joey Fillingane. And then and we hadn't talked about Kasich any, but he has his support, especially in the Jackson area. There's some sort of political folks who were not necessarily elected officials, but people who have been involved in Republican politics for a long time, and they were really pushing Ohio Governor John Kasich, who I predict is going to finish third in Mississippi ahead of Marco Rubio, but we'll see how that comes out. And I guess the most excitement though was, I think even people who aren't going to vote for Donald Trump, I think some of those folks are excited to see him, and so there was a big crowd that went to see him last night at the gym in Madison Central.
You had Trump here in Madison Monday. Yesterday, he also campaigned in Biloxi in early January. You had Cruz again in Florence, the Jackson suburb, but he also canceled an Ellisville appearance earlier, saying that he was sick, but then was able to make an appearance in Florence. He also campaigned right here in Tupelo in August. Doc, were you at that event when he showed up at Connie's?
I was, Rod, and he had a good crowd at Connie's, and we, we're excited that he came to Tupelo, and I think we made him very welcome in Tupelo, and that was back when there were 17 people running. You wondered, right. And it's amazing that he's down to 4, and really is looking more and more almost like a two-man race between Trump and Cruz. It's not there yet, but like I said earlier, I'd mentioned we talked some of Rubio. It's very important to see where Rubio comes in Mississippi, and if he comes in the same in Michigan, you got to start wondering if he should proceed if he comes in 4th. Like Bobby just mentioned, he thought Kasich would come in 3rd, and that's not good news for Rubio if that happens.
And Kasich received some glowing endorsements from newspapers across the state. Isn't that right, Bobby?
That's right. A number of newspapers endorsed Kasich. I don't know if any newspaper endorsed any other Republican candidate but Kasich. I didn't see any. Right. Rod, if you're interested, I was just on Twitter, and there's some interesting exit poll numbers on the people from Mississippi supporting Donald Trump. Some of them are kind of puzzling. 65% consider themselves outside the establishment. That's not surprising. 57% are angry with Washington. That's not surprising. This next one though is very surprising to me. 50% consider themselves moderate or liberal. That's puzzling to me. And then 47% incomes below $50,000. Don't look at me like that from 200 miles away. If it's on Twitter, it's got to be true.
Well, that's the only way they can justify their vote for Donald Trump. You cannot justify your vote for Donald Trump and say that you are a conservative Republican. So you have to be able to justify it with this liberal to moderate label. Bob, I'm curious to know why did Cruz cancel his visit to Jones Junior College? I know everybody said he wasn't feeling well, but could there have been any other reason?
I mean, I really don't know, James. You know, that's the same location where Sarah Palin came to endorse Chris McDaniel back in 2014. Also, by happenstance, was the only place I graduated from a higher education. I mean, I graduated from a four-year school, but I didn't march there. My mother made me march at Jones County Junior College, so I walked across that stage. But I got to say that, I mean, maybe take him at his word. He actually sounded a little hoarse at the fish house. The fish house yesterday is maybe the largest fish house in the world, catfish house. It's a huge building.
Well, Bobby, this is Ed. I was just I did see him on a Sunday night. I think he's in Idaho, and he was sneezing and having to put his elbow over his face and he sneezed. So I know he was really sick. And what I was thinking about, he had to come in and out so quick. He maybe just had to get into the airport and get to Florence, and then he wouldn't have time to drive all the way to Ellisville. I don't know all the logistics, but I know he had to get on to Michigan. But I do think that I was glad that he came in for Mississippi again to have another presidential candidate in. And I know Kasich spent some time here, so everybody but Rubio came in out of these last four. So those are some good things he was hoarse some, and hopefully he won't come down with the flu.
Right.
Well, my thinking was just that maybe he felt he wasn't going to do any better, and he just decided it wouldn't make any difference one way or the other. I kind of take him at his word that he didn't feel well.
Sure.
But even if he didn't feel well, if he felt like he could make some inroads, he would have gone to Jones Junior College.
Maybe he just wanted some catfish.
But, now that catfish or something that it made me hungry just seeing the pictures of him there.
Yeah, he's from
Bob,
Texas.
you want to talk a little bit about voter turnout?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen any numbers, but you know, I'm going to be curious. The largest Republican turnout in Mississippi, you know, Republican dominance in Mississippi is still a relatively new thing as far as people voting in Republican primaries, and the largest turnout was a 2014 runoff between McDaniel and incumbent Thad Cochran for the U.S. Senate seat, and a little bit over 376,000 voted in that race. So I'm going to be curious to know if Trump and Cruz and Rubio and Kasich bring more people to the polls to break that record. Now, the 376,000. Obviously, you think of Mississippi now as a Republican state, but in 2008, 434,000 came out to vote in the Obama-Clinton Democrat primary. So I mean, that was of course, Obama lost Mississippi in the general election, but he and Clinton drove the turnout pretty high in the primary in 2008.
Yeah, those are definitely interesting numbers, and we'll continue to keep a look at those. Again, just an update on where we are so far tonight with what's been reported. 15% of precincts across Mississippi are reporting Hillary Clinton has 83% of the vote. Donald Trump is leading the Republican side with 51%. So a lot of numbers still left to come in, but again, we're clearly calling Donald Trump for the Republican side, Hillary Clinton for the Democratic side, as well as Trent Kelly for the 1st District congressional seat. That is official, and we're waiting on a statement from the congressman, and hope to update you on that soon.
Rod, I do think that right now that Rubio's in 4th place in Mississippi, isn't he?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, Bobby. Bobby, I got a question for you. If Donald Trump gets 50% of the vote, does he get all the delegates in Mississippi?
No. I mean, I think he's probably going to win all the congressional districts. I mean, Cruz may win. I mean, if I had to guess, I would think Cruz's strongest district may be the 1st district with supporters like you up there, Ed.
Okay.
But it'd be the statewide delegates would be he would get, Trump would get the most, but he would only get 50. Say if he gets 52% of the statewide vote, he'd get something around 52% of the statewide delegates. And say Cruz was at 30%, Cruz would get somewhere around 30% of the delegates. There's a formula that they use to exact that out, but no, Cruz would definitely lead Mississippi with some delegates.
Well, that's what I'm just wondering. I know some states do have a 50% proportion, and I hadn't even thought about it. But it looks like what I'm seeing that of the Trump is right at that 50% mark, going up and down, and
Right.
and it's really I know Cruz has said that there's a 35% high mark for Trump, but Trump's trumping that tonight. It looks like in Mississippi, and what's really, we always thought you could add up the other three and they'd be more than Trump, but it may not happen in Mississippi tonight. That's some interesting things we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Bobby, talk a little bit about what happens in a November showdown if it's Trump and Clinton. How will that look specifically in Mississippi? Any thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I just think it's going to be. I mean, Mississippi hadn't voted for the Democratic candidate but once since 1964. They voted for Jimmy Carter. Mississippi voted for Carter. Carried Mississippi in 1976. Actually, this is kind of a side note, but the call of Mississippi in '76 put him over the top with the electoral count and gave him Mississippi was a state that when the call was made, that gave him the number of electors he needed to be elected president. But since '64, he's been the only Democrat to carry Mississippi. In '68, George Wallace, Alabama governor, well-known segregationist, won the state on the states' right ticket and defeated Nixon in Humphrey, Mississippi. And in the '90s, Mississippi rejected the favorite son from next door, Bill Clinton, who actually has relatives in Mississippi, and voted for George Bush George W. Bush. George Bush's dad, the first George Bush, in '92, and voted for Bob Dole in '96. And President Obama increased the voter turnout among Democrats in his two elections, Mississippi, but it still wasn't enough to put the Democrats over the top. I think President Obama got around 42% of the vote in both of his elections in Mississippi. So this is a red state. There's a solid block of Democratic voters, but it's a solid red state. Mm-hmm. And I don't foresee that changing with the Donald Trump Hillary Clinton contest in November.
Right. Let's zoom out a little bit outside of Mississippi and look at some of the other contests that we're going across the country today. Michigan is really the only one that we're prepared and networks are prepared to call. Donald Trump has won the Republican presidential primary in Michigan, edging out rivals to post his 14th state victory of the 2016 White House race. We still have Idaho and Hawaii, who have Republican caucuses voting later today, so those results will sort of trickle in throughout the evening. And then let's look ahead just briefly, guys, to the smaller elections this weekend, as well as some big ones next Tuesday, specifically Florida. Doc, what do some of the Republican candidates have to do to stop a Trump phenomenon right now and edge out, as we were talking about earlier, help Marco Rubio really make a stance here in his home state?
I think that's the question, what's going to be burning between now and actually Saturday, and of course Florida's next Tuesday. But looking at the numbers, if Rubio comes in fourth in Michigan, fourth in Mississippi, and let's see what Idaho does, and of course Hawaii, but it really doesn't look good for Rubio. And then you can start questioning, why should he stay in the race if the anti-Trump forces say, it's time, do we want Trump or we get behind Cruz? Mm-hmm. Now I will tell you, and James like to hear this, there are those who are backing Kasich and the other. If not, they don't like Cruz and they don't like Trump, because that's looks like the anti-establishment. And you can see, if you add it up tonight in Mississippi, you got over 80% of the vote, between maybe close to 90% of the vote that's anti-establishment candidates. So what will the establishment type do? Well, that's what's going to be a lot of talking. There's some people feel like it's like, if you for Cruz, it's like putting a gun to your head, and if you for Trump, it's like drinking poison. And there are some in the Republican Party that it's almost fun to watch them, except for it's very serious for them because they got to make some decisions here in the next few days. So I think Mississippi being a part not in Super Tuesday, I think we're being able to define this race a little more because we aren't in Super Tuesday. Now, we didn't get all the money and time, maybe in ads, but I think you can make a statement that Mississippi is helping define this race now tonight. We can see what Rubio does.
Is there a chance, Doc, that this whole process can be gummed up between now and Cleveland, and is there a possibility that everybody could be holding out for a Rubio Kasich ticket?
That's one of the many questions that are going to be asked in the next 24 hours, 48 hours. And in fact, it's being, and Kasich has said itself, there's no problem. Just go to a convention and be, have a brokered convention. Of course, I do think between Trump and Cruz, if they keep 60 and 70% of the votes, and then neither one of them gets the bid, there could possibly be a real breakout, and it would be very interesting to be a delegate at that convention.
James, what's left on the Democratic side as we look ahead to the states that will vote this weekend and next week?
Well, there's a Midwest swing that is going to have to happen, and I think that Hillary will probably take the majority of those delegates, but I think that Sanders is going to try to stay in also all the way into the bitter end. These anti-establishment candidates, they feel a groundswell of support out here. Personally, I think that Bernie Sanders is making Hillary Clinton a better candidate. So I don't mind him staying in the race at all. Doc, you got a burning desire to share on that one, didn't you?
But my question to you, James, on the Democrat side, is Bernie pushing Hillary further to the left? I know you don't think the nation's going to the left anyway, but Bernie definitely believes we need to go further to the left, and is that going to cause Hillary a problem in November?
I really don't. I think the one thing, and I had this conversation earlier today, I think that Bernie has only done one thing. Bernie has made Hillary talk about some issues that she was not talking about. She's talking about some racial issues. She's talking more about race. She is talking more about income inequality. But Hillary is not throwing any policies out there like we're going to give everybody free education. She's not throwing out. So maybe her outreach may be a little bit more liberal, a little bit more leftist. But I think her policies are pretty much going to stay where they are. I think we all will agree that Hillary Clinton can be a pretty disciplined candidate, and I don't think she's going to go off message from when she originally started. She hasn't gone off message yet. In fact, I like the fact that she's pretty much co-opted part of Bernie Sanders' message, but she has not expanded her policies at all. She stayed pretty straight with what her policies are. So, Doc, I think what's going to happen is I think that Hillary is probably going to continue to talk about a lot of those traditional issues like foreign policy. I think she's kind of caught on with the environmental issues and stuff like that. But I think she's done pretty well addressing some of the racial disparities too, and that's what Bernie has actually forced her to do.
Right. Quick update here from the Kelly camp. Trent Kelly is liking what he sees so far in the results, according to Caleb Bedillion down at Mugshots and Tupelo.
I bet he is.
That's right. He's holding out for more results before officially celebrating. So we will have more on that on djournal.com as the night progresses, and on our political dashboard, where you can see all the results from the 1st Congressional District seat as well as the presidential primaries. Before we wrap up here, just want to give everyone on the seats here a chance to give some closing thoughts. Bobby, you wanna go first? Any last thoughts as we look at some final numbers and just sort of round out the evening?
Have y'all seen anything from Michigan on the Democratic side?
I have not.
It was real close last time I saw it. Rod, I'm a journalist, so I'm not much of a mathematician, but I think with Trump's victories tonight, they were talking about the convention and what may happen. I think he's going to be the only candidate who has a chance to get the majority delegate count that's needed to win outright at the convention in Cleveland. And I just think, going back to what James and Doc were saying, if he comes, even if he doesn't win a majority, if he comes into the convention with the most delegates by far, and he's obviously going to have garnered the most popular votes throughout this process. I think it's going to be hard for even the people who dislike him to turn him down at the convention. So I mean, I think that we can start thinking about a Republican nominee, Donald Trump. I mean, I guess Ted Cruz still has a shot, but Cruz, I don't think Doc can actually garner the majority delegates to win outright. It'd have to be a brokered convention for Cruz to win, and a brokered convention, I don't think Cruz is going to be the favorite of the people who would be doing the brokering.
51-47 right now, Bobby, is what Sanders is leading, 51-47.
Well, that's kind of surprising.
In Michigan.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, James, since you have the mic, any final thoughts on the evening?
Well, I do think that all of this, because I want to comment on the Republican side, because the Democratic side really is so dull. but I lament the fact that the Republican establishment has decided to openly and blatantly go after Donald Trump, because the only thing it's going to do is solidify his base. And I think Bobby would agree with this. I think Donald has momentum. I think he's going to maintain momentum, and I think he's going to incrementally creep into the convention with the largest number of votes, and it's going to be hard to wrest those votes away from Donald Trump, either by Ted Cruz, either by some kind of a brokered man. The Republican Party will split. There will be a split in the Republican Party for 20 years if they try to take that nomination away from Donald Trump. I believe that.
Doc, any thoughts there?
Well, your thoughts, James, it's what I see is what I think Mississippi and Michigan are bringing into play tonight is Donald Trump is a force that nobody's been able to stop. And I believe the Republican establishment, or what do you want to call those who want Kasich and Rubio now, will have to have what you call a come to Jesus moment in the next couple of days. If you wait any longer, if you wait till after Florida, the train has not only left the station, it's already gotten there.
Right.
So they got to make a decision before next Tuesday. Do we really want Cruz, or do we want Trump, or do we want to try a broker convention? The train is moving faster, and it can't be stopped,
right,
unless they have some kind of come to Jesus moment in the next 24 to 48 hours. It's my point.
Be careful what you wish for, James, there on a dull Democratic side. Just want to thank our guests here this evening in the studio. Look for more from James Hull and Ed Holliday in the Daily Journal's monthly Point-Counterpoint column. James is an award-winning journalist and political consultant. Doc is a Tupelo dentist who has written 2 successful books. Together they debate various issues from different ends of the political spectrum every month on djournal.com and the print edition of the Daily Journal. We're also joined by Daily Journal's Capitol View host Bobby Harrison, our Capitol Bureau Chief in Jackson. Watches as Bobby provides commentary and analysis on the issues being debated by the Mississippi lawmakers and legislators every Monday at 2 p.m. on djournal.com. That's Capitol View webcast. Also want to thank our official sponsor for this evening, the Daily Journal's Memo. Stay connected on news and happenings in Northeast Mississippi through the Daily Journal's podcast, The Memo. Listen to the Daily Journal's expertise while you work, commute, or exercise. Hosts Brad Locke and W. Derek Russell interview reporters and community members to keep you informed on news, food, movie reviews, wacky crime reports, and more. Listen for free in iTunes, podcast apps, or at memo.djournal.com. New episodes are released every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoon, and you can find some more election commentary on tomorrow's show. Again, thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you at home for watching, and keep up with more live results on djournal.com.